African Union Summit. President Muhammadu Buhari leads Nigeria's delegation to the high-level summit for the last time as head of state. President Muhammadu Buhari signs NITA bill into law. And Nigeria Police Force ramps up election duty strategy with training. All this with me, Naja'atu Tijani, on News Panorama. Welcome. The 36th ordinary session of the African Union is underway in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with participating heads of state and government seeking to generate greater political commitment in trade as a development agenda for the continent. President Muhammadu Buhari is leading Nigeria's delegation to the high-level summit for the last time as head of state. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that President Azali Assoumani of the Comoros Islands took over the chairmanship of the Union from his Senegalese counterpart Macky Sall.
This year's summit of the heads of state and government of the African Union has as its theme acceleration of the African continental free trade area implementation. Participants are seeking to enhance close collaboration with all relevant organs and specialized agencies of the African Union, regional mechanisms and economic communities towards fast-tracking the implementation of the AfCFTA for the benefit of Africa's population. The AfCFTA, they say, presents a unique opportunity for the continent to attain economic emancipation, which will lead to job creation, poverty alleviation, improved welfare, and sustainable development. The opening speeches, however, touched on the various socio-economic, political, and security challenges bedeviling Africa, as well as ways and means of addressing them in the greater interests of the continent and its people.
The ties between the African Union and the United Nations have never been stronger. But I also recognize the enormous tests that Africa, and indeed our world, is facing on virtually every front. The United Nations is proud to be your partner and to work together.
It is time for Africa to feed itself and fully unlock its agricultural potential to feed the world. Until Africa tells her own stories, her image will remain distorted. In this respect, please allow me to reiterate yet again the need to establish an African Union continental media house.
The AfCFTA presents itself as a tool to be deployed by the African Union to position Africa to adequately respond to the challenges of our time. We must dare to invent the economic future of the African continent.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who addressed the summit during a closed session, made a strong case for commitment by member states to hasten the completion of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. This, he said, will go a long way in promoting fair and competitive trade relations towards diversifying their economies and stimulating regional integration with the aim of achieving sustainable growth and development. While stating emphatically that Nigeria fully embraced the spirit of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, President Muhammadu Buhari is, however, worried over the multiplicity of intellectual property bodies on the continent, which he said must be harmonized so that an effective and comprehensive one Africa market can be achieved. From Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the United Nations has pledged $250 million in support of a prosperous and peaceful Africa, as made known by Secretary General Antonio Guterres at the ongoing African Union Summit in Addis Ababa. Adebola Brookslin has the details.
On the sidelines of the 36th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, the UN scribe Antonio Guterres praised the many African Union initiatives aimed at bringing about great vision for the continent, including Agenda 2063, a blueprint for the Africa of the future and the decade of women's financial and economic inclusion.
And so today,
Guterres then announced that the Central Emergency Response Fund will release $250 million to support some of the most vulnerable people in the world, including those at risk of famine in the drought-hit Horn of Africa.
around the world today, 339 million people are in need of humanitarian aid, an increase of more than 25% since last year. I'm announcing the largest ever allocation from our United Nations Central Emergency Response Fund to combat famine and to address unfunded emergencies.
Guterres, who bemoans the Security Council's lack of African representation, said the biggest injustice that exists today in Council is that lack of at least one African permanent member. Adebola Brooksland Sunday, NTA News.
Back home in Nigeria, it's a new dawn for the tourism sector as President Muhammadu Buhari has assented to the Nigerian Tourism Development Authority Act 2022, passed by the National Assembly. The Director General of the authority, Folorunsho Koka, says with the new act in effect, the tourism industry will witness new initiatives which will sanitize the sector and generate huge revenue.
Since the enactment of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation Act of 1992, it has not gone through any form of review or amendment despite several years of social, political, economic changes in the country. The act, according to tourism experts, like most laws made under the military regime, is characterized by so many inadequacies and shortcomings. With the assent by President Muhammadu Buhari, key players said tourism will now play an important role in the growth and development of the economy, like it is done in other countries. The Director General, Nigerian Tourism Development Authority, Folorunsho Koka, speaks further on the highlights and benefits of the new law.
The new bill is speaking to, contemporary issues in tourism. It's not a draconian law. It's about collaboration between states and the federal government in raising revenues within the tourism industry. It's about the Tourism Trust Fund, which is now a vehicle that we use to invest in tourism assets. It's a renovation of an old law, simply in the interest of the business, the industry.
This new law comes up with the Conventions and Visitors Bureau, which every thriving country with tourism, every country that thrives to be good with tourism, has to have its best practice.
With the act, the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, NTDC, will now be known as the Nigerian Tourism Development Authority, NTDA. Oyinaya Karo Oka, NTA News.
Thank you, Oyinaya. All is now set for the 2023 general elections, says Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, who has visited the National Collation Center as well as ad hoc staff undergoing training in Abuja. Mio Ugidi has details.
The 2023 general elections, just a week away, and the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, away from his office to the government secondary school, Gariki, Abuja, inspecting ad hoc staff undergoing training. From here off to the International Conference Center, Abuja, housing three major venues for the elections: the National Collation Center, the Situation Room, and Press Center.
We're going to get feedbacks from all the states, what's going on in the states, and also we'll be having press briefing. And in a few days' time, we're going to be having daily briefings here also.
Naira scarcity and the protest generated in some parts of the country, not threats to the elections, the INEC chairman assured.
But as I keep saying, we will not suffer any hindrances. What is happening around the country, the protest that you have mentioned, this is an issue that we are going to discuss with the security agencies. By this time next week, Nigerians will be voting in over 176,000 polling units nationwide. And the outcome of that process for presidential election will be compiled here, and the choice made by Nigerians for the next president of the country will also be announced at this venue.
That is an assurance coming from the confident national chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to Nigerians that next week, Saturday, 25 of February 2023, presidential and National Assembly elections will hold. That means by Sunday or Monday, Nigerians will know their president and vice president-elect, as well as members of the National Assembly. Until then, my name is Mie Ogedi from the National Collation Center, ICC, Abuja.
And ahead of the elections, the Southeast Council of Traditional Rulers has urged its people to ignore the sit-at-home order and massively go out to vote for their preferred candidates. This is contained in a communique issued at the end of its first 2023 Executive Committee meeting held at the Old Eastern Nigeria House of Chiefs in Enugu. The communique re-emphasizes the role of traditional rulers in the maintenance of peace and order and appeals to security agencies to ensure a safe and conducive atmosphere in the forthcoming exercise. The council also charges monarchs in the region to take control of their domains and ensure everyone is safe before, during and after the national event through effective collaboration with security agencies. Towards checking violence in the upcoming 2023 general elections to allow for credibility and peaceful polls, the Nigeria Police Force has engaged personnel on a training session to map strategies on how to checkmate thuggery and vices before, during and after the exercise in Cross River State. Oba Hyacinth reports.
Were drilled on the role of police officers in election security management, crowd control and respect for human rights.
I think everybody here now knows his rights. The public there, they have their rights. We also we have our own rights. We are now equipped on how to deal with the public, in a more matured way. The area of alternative dispute resolution also was addressed also.
As an organization that is saddled with the responsibility of training police and making them well prepared for whatever assignment they are being sent to do, we felt it to be proper to kind of give them a pre-orientation before the process of the elections on how they should compose themselves when they get there and how they should carry out their functions.
With less than a week before the commencement of the 2023 general election, officers say the training is apt and timely in preventing all forms of electoral malpractices capable of truncating the integrity of the electoral process. In Calabar, Oba Hyacinth, NTA News.
Well, it's just a week to the 2023 general election, and the military is engaging major stakeholders to ensure no part of the country experiences any disturbance, especially the southeast region. The governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodimma, who delivered a lecture at the symposium organized by the National Defense College in Abuja, gave a detailed experience on the southeast situation and the way forward. Defense correspondent Ismail Musa reports.
In Imo State may just be similar across several claims, but what makes it expedient is having an incumbent governor sharing his bitter experience in a presentation titled National Security, Strategic Leadership and Development, My Political Experience, with emphasis on the difficult task of fighting complex security situations and to foster ties in translating this lecture into workable solutions. The state is seeking collaboration with the National Defense College to stem the tide.
I said also in the same lecture that the support of Mr. President Muhammad Buhari and the security agencies were able to deal with the monster called insecurity, occasioned by the activities of the unknown gunmen. We brought it into the barest minimum, and the Imo State is relatively now peaceful.
Governor Hope hopes that as days pass by, the new platform created by this research document will assist in further developing the state and the region to its full potentials. From the National Defense College in Abuja, Ismail Musa, NTA News.
Stay tuned for more political stories on News Panorama after some messages.
The vaccine offers hope for a safe country free of coronavirus. I urge all state governments, traditional and religious leaders to take the lead in the mobilization effort within their environment and spheres of influence. I similarly urge all eligible Nigerians to present themselves and be vaccinated in accordance with the order of priority already mapped out at the various authorized designated centers only.
APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu has promised to consolidate efforts to return the lost glory of Borno State if elected in next week's election. This was at the APC presidential and governorship campaign rally in Maiduguri, which rounded off the state rallies of the presidential candidate. Musbau Danwahab was there for NTA News.
In Maiduguri was an unusual entourage, a visitor and a former chief host. A son of a soil, former governor of the state and serving senator was here with his principal, Ashiwaju, and other political family members to seek home support for a much greater aspiration. It was apparently a visit to fulfill all righteousness by the APC presidential campaign train as local party loyalists pulled their weight with their turnout in this frontier of the northeast. It was a full traveling list of governors and senators who were on ground to show solidarity for one of their own. Vice President Borno State residents are grateful for today, but still long for the halcyon years of yesterday when it earned its name, the home of peace. And Bola Tinubu is committing himself to this cause in addition to other social and economic development programs he plans if elected.
You have summoned the prevention, you have summoned homelessness, some people created orphans. We will take care of all of you.
We are going to protect the integrity of our people and our nation. We will improve on the basic amenities.
Borno State will not discourage anyone from voting. As for me, I have promised to move the state forward.
For the first time, Borno will be hoping to take the chance and produce an elected representative of the presidency in the next week's election. From Maiduguri, Musbau and Wahab, NTA News.
Supporters of the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi are optimistic of victory in next Saturday's election, with various solidarity groups taking to the streets to galvanize support for the party. David Irie reports.
The various support groups are together to drum support for Labour Party with this show tagged Obedient Global March 2023. From the Eagle Square, the youths took to the major streets, preaching the gospel of good tidings of what Nigeria stands to gain if Peter Obi is elected before betting the show at the city gates.
Keep your faith strong. Do not be scared. Do not cower. Do not lose faith, because we shall win this election.
We are going to start now moving to the wards and polling unit on the 19th, 22 until 23rd. That is what we want to do, because it's the final push. It's now or never.
So I'm urging everybody to come out, vote for Peter Obi and secure Nigeria for yourself.
In the next 6 days, we will go to touch every single grain of sand in this country.
Vote Mama, Papa, Pikin across board.
The roadshow, which is holding nationwide, has at its theme, now or never. In Abuja, David Ire, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the presidential campaign train hit Adamawa State, the home state of candidate Atiku Abubakar. Onotu Yakubu reports that while the presidential candidate was making another rallying call, members of 5 other political parties backed the presidential ticket.
It was a homecoming for the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and his campaign team. Host Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri of Adamawa State, who is also seeking re-election, led the charge of party stakeholders to address the supporters.
That the country is in journey, that the country is in pieces, that we are separated.
Just 20 minutes Can't we do election violence in Lagos?
No any candidate in any other party.
Toy, have you copied?
This is what I call Adamawa formula. Unity of interest and ensuring that we perfect it. To further advance the cause of democracy and good governance in Nigeria, we, the leaders of the 5 political parties, have decided to adopt the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, I don't need to tell you about Atiku Abubakar. You know Atiku Abubakar more than myself.
The candidate, Atiku Abubakar, told the party's supporters in Adamawa that the actualization of his rescue and recovery mission will address insecurity.
To live by our promises, to make sure that we have a united country, that we have a peaceful country, that we have a buoyant economy for our country.
We are looking for experienced men with the capacity, with the knowledge of Nigeria that can unite us, that can secure this country.
Atiku Abubakar expressed the confidence that his message of hope will go beyond the campaign grounds. From Yola, Adamawa State, Onoto Yakubu, NTA News.
Meanwhile, multiple auto crash has occurred this Sunday morning around Kara Bridge on the outward section of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, with 35 persons involved and 8 injured. A statement from the Federal Road Safety Corps Ogun Sector Command says 14 vehicles, including 1 trailer, 4 trucks, 2 Toyota buses, among others, were involved in the accident suspected to have occurred due to brake failure and speed on the part of the trucks. The injured victims have since been taken to the Accident Emergency Center, Ojota, for treatment, while FRSC operatives with men of the Nigeria Police Force are on ground to manage the situation for free flow of traffic. And next is sports update with Oche Mbede.
All is now